All right, good evening, everyone. We'll call this meeting to order. And before we go to the roll, I'd like to ask everyone to please turn your cell phones either off or to vibrate, out of respect for everyone here. Mrs. Rose, if you'll please take the roll.
Councilmember Steve Rice.
Here.
Councilmember Barbara Spector.
Here.
Councilmember Joe Brzezinski.
Here.
Vice Mayor Diane McNutt.
Here.
Mayor and Chair Mike Wasserman.
Here. Thank you very much. Now I'd like to ask the president of the Los Gatos Bicycle Racing Club, Barry Gordon, to bring his members forward and join me at the podium. Now I see what you were hiding in your way.
Nice bike.
All right, absolutely. Joining us tonight for the Pledge of Allegiance are members of the Los Gatos Bicycle Racing Club. The club was established almost 50 years ago and is considered one of the most successful bicycle racing clubs in the nation. Its members have won many state, national, and world championships. And of course, we are all familiar with the Cats Hill Classic in Los Gatos, hosted by this club for 35 years. I'd like to specifically acknowledge the club's efforts to involve more than 600 juniors in its developmental and racing programs over the years. When I read their commendation, you'll hear about the many more contributions this club has made to the community and beyond. Before the club begins the Pledge of Allegiance, Linda Wells, mother of one of our 15-year-old junior racers, where's the redhead? Right here? All right. Will sing the Star-Spangled Banner for us. Please rise. Come right on in, front and center.
I used a microphone, so.
Do you want to put it in here?
Yeah, put it in there, please. Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hail at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight over ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
That was tremendous. Now we'll turn to, what's your name?
Ashley Briscoe.
Thank you, Ashley. How would you like to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? You just start us off, and we'll follow. Okay, the flag's right over there.
Sure.
All right? Take the microphone, say the first few words, and don't worry, we'll go from there.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, with the republic with which it stands, one nation, under God, with indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Great job. Thank you very much. Let's hear it for Ashley. Thank you. She didn't know that was going to happen. All right. Let me grab the right one here. And we now have a commendation that I'd like to read to President Barry Gordon here in the Los Gatos Bicycle Racing Club. And there we go. All right. Whereas the Los Gatos Bicycle Racing Club is a highly competitive amateur cycling team founded in 1960 by Bob Tetzloff and Jack Hartman, U.S. Olympians, as a developmental racing and training club. And whereas the U.S. Cycling, the official cycling organization, responsible for identifying, training, and selecting cyclists to represent the United States in international competitions, selected the Los Gatos Bicycle Racing Club, I think we might just say LGBRC, as the 2008 Division I Club of the Year. The award is determined by the amount of events a club holds, outstanding competitive results, and efforts to further stimulate member education and growth in the sport of cycling. And whereas the LGBRC promotes cycling through closely supervised training and teaches bicycle safety and proper use of helmets at schools and community health fairs. LGBRC hosts a boys and girls youth race training program designed to maximize potential on and off the bikes, as featured in Bay Area Parent Magazine. Whereas LGBRC, junior, women, senior, and master members have won numerous California, national, and world championships in road, track, cyclocross, I haven't heard of that one, and mountain bike racing. And whereas for 35 years, LGBRC has promoted and hosted the Cats Hill Classic Bicycle Race, a premier racing event in downtown Los Gatos, of course. Whereas the LGBRC has devoted significant time to the town of Los Gatos as an ambassador member of the Chamber of Commerce, has supported local charitable organizations such as the Los Gatos Education Foundation, the Alex Smith Foundation, Los Gatos High School Marching Band, and the Youth Science Institute, and donates new, unsold team uniforms to developing organizations such as the Mazatlan Cycling Club and Project Rwanda. Now, therefore, the Town Council of the Town of Los Gatos does hereby render with special appreciation, commendation, and thanks to the Los Gatos Bicycle Racing Club.
Sure. I'd just like to thank the town of Los Gatos for hosting this event for 35 years. We're going to have our 36th version of the race on May 2nd. And it's in this climate, it's very difficult to have races in downtown areas. Most races today are held in industrial parks, often the hinterlands. So it's very special that we have a race in downtown where not only the spectators can enjoy the town, and the citizens of town can also help support the race. So I thank you very much for doing it. It's a very special event, and we thank you again.
Thank you. And Barry, the council in here has some council pins. We have enough for all of your members. We want to just give you that as a little memento, if you will. And also, if you can shake hands of the council here behind you. Thank you all very much. Thank you. Great job. Great job. Right behind you, got a couple of council members, especially want to meet you. Right on up and shake hands. Oh!
She didn't break it riding a bike.
Okay. Her name's Ashley. And they would like me to point out, Ashley has a broken hand, but she did not do it while riding a bike. A car? There you go, yeah. And lead him out. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. All right, Mr. Wasserman. Hey, yes, good to see you too. There you go. All right, following that, we have two important proclamations to make. The first proclaims the week of March 22nd through March 28th as Disaster Service Worker Week. This acknowledges the important role our town employees serve in the event of an emergency affecting the town. Here to receive the proclamation on behalf of our town employees is Sergeant Carrie Harris, who leads much of the town's efforts in emergency preparedness. Sergeant Harris, welcome.
Thank you, Mayor.
Betcha. And we'll read this proclamation that we're presenting to you on behalf of the employees in town involved with emergency preparedness and safety. Whereas no one knows when the next big disaster will strike in the South Bay, or whether it will be earthquake, flood, terrorist attack, or wildfire. And whereas public service employees are by law designated as disaster service workers and required to assist in their government employers' disaster response and recovery activities. And whereas large-scale disasters will require a regional coordinated response in which the County of Santa Clara will support local cities, including the town of Los Gatos, with a primary goal to save lives and property. And whereas the town of Los Gatos disaster service workers will be required to aid the town's disaster response and recovery activities, and also may be called upon to aid the county in such efforts. And whereas the County of Santa Clara is launching Disaster Service Workers Be Aware, Prepare, an awareness campaign to educate public service employees in the county, 15 cities, and 32 school districts about their roles as disaster service workers and typical tasks they may be asked to perform. And whereas disaster service workers may be asked to assist in aiding displaced residents and evacuees at temporary shelter locations, assist emergency personnel with mass evacuations, distribute emergency supplies at government facilities and warehouses, and use specialized skills such as language capabilities, certifications, first aid, and CPR training. And whereas if a disaster should occur, disaster service workers will have responsibility for their own personal safety and that of their families. So it's important that public service employees take steps now to become informed, prepare their families, and be ready, as they may not have the time or the necessary supplies once the disaster strikes. Now, therefore, be it resolved, I, Mike Wasserman, by the virtue of authority vested in me as the mayor of the town of Los Gatos, do deem it appropriate and do hereby claim the week of March 22nd through March 28th, 2009, as Disaster Service Work Week in Los Gatos and Santa Clara County. Thank you very much, Sergeant Harris.
Thank you on behalf of all town employees, mayor, and council members. This is really a great opportunity to remind the citizens of Los Gatos that all town employees, not just police, not just fire or our friends in public works, but all town employees are actually disaster service workers, and they stand ready and prepared to step forward and help our town respond to a disaster and help it recover. We experienced the 1989 Loma Prieta earthquake, and we suffered some major damage here in Los Gatos, but through the hard work of town employees, we recovered very well, and I anticipate that we will do it again when the next one inevitably hits. So thank you for this recognition, and we sure appreciate it.
Thank you. The second proclamation we have proclaims the month of March as Colorectal Cancer Awareness Month. Several years ago, Los Gatos became a colorectal cancer-free zone, meaning we joined with other cities in committing to educate the community about the important steps to take to ensure early detection of this disease, the only preventable cancer. Here to receive the proclamation on behalf of the American Cancer Society is Amy Goldsberry. Amy, if you'll please come up. Welcome. Amy knows from personal experience how important testing for colon cancer is. She was diagnosed with stage 3 colon cancer at the age of 29. At the time, her son Ty was just 17 months old, and she was working full-time at Westmont High School as a dean of students. Her family's lives were turned upside down, to say the least. Amy has been blessed to have just celebrated her 5-year anniversary cancer-free in December 2008. I think that deserves a round of applause. Amy speaks to others whenever she can to share the information she's learned about colon cancer. After I read the commendation, I will ask Amy to say a few words to remind all of us how important screening is. Amy, the commendation proclamation reads as follows. Whereas, it's one of our favorite words, as you can tell, colorectal, which is combined colon and rectum, cancers are the third most common site of new cancers and deaths in the United States in both men and women over the age of 50. And whereas research suggests that the risk of colorectal cancer can be reduced by increased awareness and use of early detection practices and following the American Cancer Society's recommended screening guidelines, including examination of by a healthcare provider. And whereas screening can prevent the occurrence of colorectal cancer by detecting and removing precancerous polyps, or can diagnose at an early stage of the disease when it can be effectively cured. And whereas in Santa Clara County, 665 new cases will be diagnosed, and almost 205 will die from this preventable cancer. And whereas the town of Los Gatos has declared itself a colon cancer-free zone by implementing an awareness program to help eliminate colon cancer in our community. And whereas the town of Los Gatos is committed to informing employees and residents about the risk factor and available precautions that can be taken to fight the disease, including taking the necessary screening tests for the disease. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Mike Wasserman, by the virtue of the authority vested in me as the mayor of the town of Los Gatos, do hereby deem it appropriate and do hereby proclaim the month of March 2009 as Colorectal Cancer Awareness Month. Amy, before I turn the microphone over to you for just a word, I just want to share with the public and everyone else out there, 4 years ago, I went through this procedure and they removed the precancerous polyps from me. And as a result of that, I go every 2 years now. And 2 years later, there was an issue again. But because of my going there, the polyps are removed. But in addition, I got my sister, my brother-in-law, my mother-in-law, father-in-law, mother, and father all to go. And their tests all showed clear, but it was very much peace of mind because I know it runs in the family. And I just want to thank you for your work. This, as they say, is the only preventable form of cancer. And Amy, if you'll please share a few more thoughts for us.
Sure. Thank you so much. And thank you for sharing that. That's such a great testimony to getting tested. The appropriate age typically for people to get tested is 50. So anybody 50 or older should be tested. The gold standard for colorectal cancer screening is a colonoscopy. And I was lucky enough to find a doctor at the age of 29 who said to me, it's probably nothing, but I think you should have a colonoscopy. And I also was showing one of the symptoms. Typically, colon cancer, the most common symptom is no symptoms at all. So it's really important to listen to our bodies. And I think if we each leave tonight and share this story with somebody that we know and encourage them, if they're 50 or older, to go out and get screened, it really, truly can save a life. And you're such a great example of that. And had you have not gone to get your colonoscopy, it would have turned into cancer. And you would have had to gone through, lots of yucky stuff. So it's been my mission for the last 5 years to talk to people and encourage people to get colonoscopies. I do not want anybody else to go through what I went through. And so if you all could help me in my mission, my own personal mission, and like I said, share the stories that you've heard tonight and encourage others. And if you have a doctor that will not give you a colonoscopy, please find another doctor, because that really is the gold standard, and it's the only screening that should be done in order to test for colon cancer. So thank you so much for doing this. I really appreciate it. And also on behalf of the American Cancer Society and Dr. Richard Adruni, who started the Colon Cancer Free Zone. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And as you heard Amy mention the yucky part, which is getting rid of the problem. On the other side of that, a colonoscopy is an absolute non-event. Okay, for all of you that are thinking in your head that don't know about it, a colonoscopy is honest to God, getting a filling at a dentist field is more, seriously, okay? Colonoscopy is there's nothing to be afraid of in a colonoscopy, and it's the only preventable form of cancer. So I really encourage everybody to do it. Okay, now it's time for a presentation from our elementary and high school districts. And before we start that, I want to say that given the recent passing of a few young people in our community, tonight's presentation becomes even more important as it focuses on what our community can and should do for our youth. That said, I'll ask Mr. Richard Whitmore, who became superintendent of the Los Gatos Union School District last July, to come forward. He'll introduce the rest of the speakers with him this evening. But before Superintendent Whitmore starts speaking, I'd like to officially welcome Mr. Whitmore to our community and tell you all a little about him. Superintendent Whitmore has played a leadership role in California's educational organizations for the past 15 years. Prior to becoming superintendent of Los Gatos Union School District, Richard served as interim superintendent for the Davis Joint Unified School District. Prior to that position, he had a leadership role, didn't know I was going to do this, did you? At West Ed, an education research, development, and service agency which serves as the U.S. Department of Education's Western Regional Education Laboratory and as a California Comprehensive Assistance Center, assisting the state's schools and districts in meeting goals for school improvement. Before that, Richard served as Chief Deputy Superintendent at the California Department of Education. Earlier roles included staffing the Stanford President's strategic planning effort and managing the university's real estate and faculty housing program. Richard is a graduate of Stanford and Harvard and is married with 3 children. Now I'll turn things over to Superintendent Whitmore.
Thank you.
And let's welcome Superintendent Whitmore to the community.
Thanks. I've had a chance to meet most of you individually, but not in your chambers like this. So it's very nice to be here tonight, and I appreciate the warm welcome from all of you and from the community that you've helped build here. It's been a great place to come to work every day for the past 8.5 months now. We're here tonight to talk about Project Cornerstone. It's been a big part of our district for the past 4 or 5 years. And I'm here mostly to assure you that it's going to continue to be a big part of our district over the next years to come. Our board just last Tuesday adopted a new strategic plan for the district, and in the process we identified the core values of the district, the first 2 of which are we believe in educating the whole child academically, socially, emotionally, and physically. And number 2, we believe in the importance of schools, parents, and community partnering to support learning. So we expect to keep working on these issues, and we expect to do it in partnership with all of you. And I think a further sign of our commitment to Project Cornerstone is that 4 of our 5 board members are here tonight to listen to this presentation. So I think you can rest assured that they take this work seriously too, and I won't introduce them individually, but I think you all know who they are. So the rest of what I have to do tonight is really introduce Marla Rodriguez, our Director of Student Services, who really was kind of the spark plug that got the Project Cornerstone fire lit in the district, and she's really been the keeper of the flame since, and she's working closely with all 5 of our principals, and any program like this that is so student-centered really has to have a life at each of our schools. So Marla is going to tell you how it came to be and what we've been doing to keep it going in the elementary school district.
Good evening, everyone.
Excuse me, Marla.
Yes.
If you can bring the microphone closer to you.
How's that?
Thank you. And if you need to move or point to anything, the microphone pulls out.
Okay.
All right? Thank you.
So my job tonight is to talk a little bit about the historical background of how Project Cornerstone came to our school district and the philosophy that carries on. In 2005, when I first came to the school district, we had, at that time, a new strategic plan, and part of it was to create a community-wide character education program. And within this community-wide character education program, the charge was to not only bring it to the schools, but also to involve the community. So I was asked to think of ways in which we could get this started within the district. So in the past, I've worked in the east side part of San Jose, and I had an occasion to meet Linda Silvius through Project Cornerstone. And I thought, what a wonderful way to maybe introduce some ideas of asset building, and brought Linda Silvius to the school district. And really, Linda Silvius, I'm maybe the spark plug, but Linda Silvius is the person that really brought it to life in the school district with our schools, because without her, I think that it would have been much harder to bring it about. So I wanted to give her as much credit as humanly possible for what she did in our school district. So anyway, we contacted her, and in the meantime, I developed a community task force, which some of you, I recognize, having sat on it. And that was in 2005-2006 school year. We had a community task force, and as you can see, we had the mayor at that time, which was Diane, on our task force, and we also had Mike on our task force, as well as people from the police force, CASA, some of our teachers, high school principal, and also their safety, or person that kind of led the safety ideas in the district at that time, which was, let me see who else. I don't want to miss anybody. Teachers as well from both the high school and from the elementary school district. So as part of this, we thought, well, how could we kind of get a handle on what is it that our students need? So we decided in the spring of 2006 to do the Cornerstone Survey, which was quite out of sequence because the county had already done it a couple of years before, but we decided to do it anyway. And so we did, and we administered it to our 4th through 8th grade classes. When we got the survey data back, we thought, what would be the best way to present this data to not only our teachers, parents, but also the community? And so what we did was we brought it to several meetings at each of our individual school sites and presented data particularly to their schools and then district-wide, as well as to our task force at the time. And decided what could we do with this information? What would be the best way to, at the school site, to develop action plans. So we looked at certain areas that seemed to fit within the school site, and one of them was school climate. And so each of our schools will look a little different if you went out to see how they implemented things, but each of our schools took this to heart and held the parent meetings and community meetings and really reflected on the data. Then in the fall of 2006, we decided, how do we bring this data and the philosophy of Project Cornerstone to the whole community? So we held a community-wide event at the Jewish Community Center. At that time, we had another mayor, sitting right there, present our introduction, and we had probably over 75 people attend that community event. And within that community event, again, we had faith-based groups, we had town council members, we had some of the sports leagues, and several other connected community members. And so what we did there was we really went over the philosophy of Project Cornerstone, which is asset building at its best, which is the 40 assets that students need in order to thrive. And we also broke into small groups and charged people with doing one thing that they could bring back later in the year, one thing out of the 40 assets that they felt that they could personally own. And each person wrote down one asset or one thing within their area that they felt that they could personally own and left that meeting. So we felt that that meeting really brought the community together and gave kind of a backdrop for what we were hoping to do. After that meeting, I don't have it up here, but in June, we sort of reconvened a smaller group, and people were really very excited about the kinds of things that they were able to do, and especially parents in our community. So at our schools today, how we're bringing it forward and how we're involving not only community but our parent groups as well is At each of our elementary schools, we have something called the ABC Reader Program, and there we have parents come into each of the elementary school classrooms, not only parents, some community members as well, reading books that are specially designed to enforce one of the areas of the 40 assets. And I would say that each of our schools, we have at least 50 or so parents, community members that come in to read to our elementary school students regularly. At our middle school, they really want to adopt the 40 asset language, which is the language that talks about different ways in which students can thrive, being one, school climate. And they really adopted the idea that they needed to create a school climate where kids felt welcomed and felt valued. And so they focused on this area. In addition, we have parent groups that attended Taking Asset Building Personally, which is an actual class for 6 weeks that really walks parents through a method in which they can talk to their students and also how they talk to other youth in the community and what role they have with youth in the community. And we have, at this point, more than 100 parents trained in this, and that's another kudo that I really have to give to Linda Silvius, because she kept coming, even though she said that, you know, we've got to get our parents trained and then our parents would be the ones to present it. She kept coming to us because we asked her. Our parents didn't feel quite ready, and she kept coming and doing this, Taking Asset Building Personally, and we really thank her for that. And as an offshoot of this, we were wondering, you know, we have the ABC Reader Program at the elementary school. What could we do at our middle school that would be quite appropriate for our middle schoolers? And so Fisher, at the end of last year, and we're continuing into this year, is focusing on a book club where students come at the lunch break and they choose a book, and the book always has some kind of underlying moral about how students thrive in the community, what they can do in the community to help future students and future children in the community, how they can be people that are assets to the community. And in addition, our parent elementary education group, part of the wider parent continuum, they really took asset building to heart. And in the fall, they hosted our James Volbrecht Lemonade Stand presenter, which was very well attended by community. And we really need to give them a round of support, because now when they look at speakers to come for parents to hear, they really think about what the speaker is going to say and how that kind of dovetails into our philosophy in terms of the 40 assets. And we hope to administer the survey again in 2010 and see what growth we've met. So, I think Carrie is next.
Good evening, Council. Good to see you all again. So when I arrived as superintendent about 2.5 years ago, I sat in meetings and I kept hearing about this Project Cornerstone.
Excuse me, Kerry, if you can introduce yourself just for the record and TV.
Sure.
Thank you.
Kerry Matsuoka, Superintendent, Los Gatos, Saratoga High School District. And this work actually got started by Cindy Reyna, my predecessor as superintendent. And when I arrived, they were just on the verge of discussing the idea of surveying the high school students. And at your seat, we passed out a copy of the data that applies grades 4 through 12. And so in May of 2007, the high school district surveyed students at both Saratoga and Los Gatos High School. And according to Linda Silvius, it was the largest sampling of any public high schools in the county. We had over 2,000 kids take it district-wide. And of course, we're so proud of our schools and we think we have such phenomenal students, we thought we would just cream this, quote, test, and we would have students that just had, you know, assets off the charts. And the thing that was very kind of a message to all of us adults is that our teens have a very common experience of those across the country. And the other pamphlet gives you a glimpse of the data across the country, and it also lines up with the county data. You don't have that in your sheet, but we've looked at the Santa Clara County results, our high school district, and almost every high school district in the area has a very similar look of asset data. And so we've been gradually folding this data out to our staff and to the parent community. As you can hear, this work really got started in the elementary district. And so tonight, our goal is just to kind of catch you up to what's been taking place in the community. Mike's efforts of promoting Project Cornerstone have been tremendous over the last 4 to 6 months. And so here's the next kind of glimpse of what's going on. There's a partnership that has been coming together, and it starts with the elementary district because they've been going for 3 to 4 years. We have joined into that effort. The town of Los Gatos has certainly become part of this a lot because of Mike's efforts, but also helping to share an expense of hiring the support of the county and Project Cornerstone. And so Silicon Valley Project Cornerstone as an organization has been going for 10 years, long time. And so I want to introduce Ann Ersman. She's the Executive Director of Project Cornerstone, and she'll give you her perspective from a county level and what she sees going on in the town of Los Gatos.
Thank you, Carrie, and I'm Ann Ersman with Project Cornerstone, and it's my pleasure to be here tonight. Just real briefly, what's been fabulous for Project Cornerstone is all the groundwork that the elementary district has done and that the high school is moving forward, and taking that out beyond the schools and out into the community at large. What's important for our youth is not just what happens while they're at school, but what happens to them when they walk down the street, what happens to them when they are in a restaurant, in a business, how they're treated by their neighbors at all elements of the community. So the community-wide initiative in the town its groundwork has been building and momentum has been building, and Mayor Wasserman has really helped launch as his platform a real town-wide initiative. And at this point, since the State of the Town address, over 40 to 50 different organizations have responded, and we have been going out and meeting with all the service clubs, with different faith communities, with coaching organizations, with the Chamber of Commerce, with different businesses, and asking all of them to sort of get up to speed, catch up with the schools, understand more of what this philosophy is about, and sign a pledge form about how they can get involved and how they can make a difference. And I did bring a handout. It didn't get passed out yet. I'll give it to the clerk. Of the handout that we've been giving to those different organizations, and it includes a welcome. It includes information about the developmental assets. It includes a snapshot from the Fisher Middle School survey in 2006. And it really tries to convey the message that the more support, the more assets that our children have, the less risky behaviors they're going to engage in, and the more likely they are to thrive and succeed and contribute to this community and be up here, hopefully, as an elected official one day. As Marla already said, countywide, our plan is to have another countywide survey done in the fall of 2010, so that we'll be able to see the progress that we've made as a community at large. But I'm particularly excited about what we are hopefully going to see in the town of Los Gatos. With a community of this size, with this much intentionality, we really should see an uptick in how the youth report the support that they feel. So I will give this to the clerk, and thank you. Carrie, I believe you're coming back up.
So just some closing thoughts about next steps and some of the discussions that we've had. We see some kind of community-wide Project Cornerstone leadership team. In some ways, it's like the community work that Marla created when she first started this. And we see a group that meets, we're not sure how often, but coordinating efforts, just sharing ideas, that would be a good next step. We really have the expertise and resources of the county folks. Ann represents a team of Linda Ersman, and there's another person, Kelly Noss, who's starting to work within our schools. She's really good. She's a parent. She's also worked over in the San Jose Unified District. It's been great to see Mike Wasserman's pledge drive, and I see him gathering all kinds of support for this. And you know what's happening this Thursday? There's a countywide breakfast, and it's a recognition of all the great work going on in the county. An idea for the future for the town of Los Gatos that we do our own recognition about Project Cornerstone. And we start off small, but I think for all of us, if we came together and gathered around some of the good work happening, I think that would send a positive message to our students, to our families, our schools, really the community. So that's a glimpse of Project Cornerstone, and I know we're running out of time. We had one last slide for question and discussion, but I'll leave it up to you guys.
Thank you very much, Kerry. Council, any questions of the superintendents or Ann Arisman here? No? Thank you. And on behalf of our council, thank you for the slide presentation. Thank you all for taking the time tonight. I see we do have 4 out of 5 school board members, which is tremendous, and the superintendents that we have here. I would like to ask everybody else in the room that's not directly related with the school and intimate with Project Cornerstone to please take, especially the gentleman over here and lady, to please take, Ann, you said you brought some extra brochures. If you could just perhaps leave those on the front row. And anyone here that's not already familiar with Project Cornerstone, I'd ask that you please pick up one of those. I do want to make a little announcement as far as the El Camino speakers that we're going to have in just a few minutes. But when I met with your Dr. Pfeiffer and Michelle Van Zuyden, we told them about this, and they said El Camino Hospital, Los Gatos, or whatever the ultimate name is, anyway, would be interested in participating with the community in this town-wide effort to help our children. The bottom line, Project Cornerstone's been going on for 10 years. It's been in our schools for 3 years. It's doing a heck of a job. This group started the involvement with the community, and we're trying now to expand upon that involvement with the community. The important thing to learn from this research that's been done and the work that's being done, I think it's really important tonight, considering recent events, is that the more developmental assets a young person feels they have, the less likely they are to engage in risky behavior. Okay? The more developmental assets they have, the more likely they are to lead healthy, happy, successful lives. And that's why this is such an important program. And I won't go on any more about that because I could go on for a long time. Council, any other questions? None. Thank you very much for coming. School board members, superintendents, appreciate that very, very much. Okay, we'll now move on to the next part of our agenda, which is the closed session report, and we'll turn to Town Attorney Ori Korb to give that report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, members of the public. Council did meet in closed session tonight on 2 different items. The first was a conference with its real property negotiator concerning 2 properties. The first is APN 527-25005, the Mulberry School site. The second is APN 510-44069, the Main Street parking lot site. Council also met with its labor negotiator concerning an issue of negotiations with all of the town's represented and unrepresented employee groups. In both cases, direction was given, no final reportable actions were taken, and that concludes my report.
Thank you, Mr. Korb. We appreciate that. Now, just a reminder, if you'd like to address the council this evening under verbal communications or any item on the agenda, to please be sure and fill out one of the speaker cards in front of you and return it to the clerk staff to my left. Excuse me. Now we're at the council matters portion of the agenda, and I'll look to my fellow council members for any items, issues, anything they want to raise. Vice Mayor McNutt.
Surprised you, huh?
You did. Welcome, surprise.
Mayor, I have 2 items tonight. First, I just wanted to remind the community that Silicon Valley Reads is coming to Los Gatos on Monday, March 23rd. Our author is Brian Copeland, you might know from KGO Radio, and he'll be in the council chambers here at 6:30 talking about Not a Genuine Black Man. So I hope that's free and open to the public, and I hope everyone is able to attend. My second item, let me put my glasses on to get this one. Last week when I was at the West Valley Sanitation District Board of Directors meeting, we were talking about the pollution prevention program that happened in San Jose last year. And in particular, the safe medicine disposal was of real interest to me. There's a lot of efforts underway in pilot programs to try to keep medicines out of disposal public disposal, and it's not an easy thing to do. And I wondered if I could get a second council member who would be interested in seconding an idea for us to explore doing a pilot project here in Los Gatos where our police department would become a drop-off site for unused medicines. And the reason it needs to be a police department is because it's a controlled substance. So it can't just be in the library.
Understood, and I think we have a second with Mr. Brzezinski. Okay, 2 council members, so Mr. Manager, if we could please agendize that for further discussion.
We will schedule that for a forthcoming council meeting.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mayor.
You're welcome. Any other council matters? Seeing none, I'll look to our manager for any manager matters. Manager matters.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council and the public, just 3 items. First, I introduced you earlier to Wendy Rooney as our prospective Director of Community Development. Now I introduce you to her again as our new Director of Community Development. She started today with the town of Los Gatos, and it's great to have her on board. And with her appointment, Bud Lortz has moved up as Deputy Town Manager, coordinating a series of special projects from sports facilities to the Boulevard Plan. So.
Wonderful. Welcome, Wendy, on behalf of the council. Got it. Good.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. Second, you will notice around the council chambers we have our newest art exhibit that was unveiled last week. We would encourage the viewing public to come and view the art. We have fabric artists who have exhibited nationally, and we're quite pleased with this exhibit that was organized by our arts mission. Last, moving to the police department. In the last week, we've made a series of 6 arrests that have cured a series of 9 burglaries and theft rings that have plagued not only Los Gatos but other surrounding communities. And it was good police work by our officers working in conjunction with other jurisdictions that led to these arrests and have prevented burglaries in Campbell, San Jose, Saratoga, as well as Los Gatos. So kudos to the staff that worked on all those projects.
I think that deserves a round of applause.
That concludes staff report.
Thank you. And as far as the artwork around us that you may see, as far as the TV cameras, this is done from a master weaver and a master dyer, correct? Master weaver and a master dyer, both Los Gatos residents, both who have pieces of their art on display, as Town Manager Larson said, in the United States and throughout the world. Okay, now it's time to deal with tonight's consent items, and before the council takes any action, I'd like to see, before we take any action, I'd like to see if any member of the council would like to pull any consent item. Seeing none, I will look to the public to see if they'd like to pull any consent item. Which one, Mr. Davis? Number 8. All right. Okay, so we have 8 pulled, and that leaves 1 through 7. I'll look to council for an action.
Move to approve 1 through 7.
Motion made.
Second.
Motion seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for the question. All in favor of passing consent items 1 through 7, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None. Passes unanimously. And Mr. Davis, why don't you come up and give your 3 minutes about number 8? Yeah. I think what we'll do, Citizen Ray, is we'll combine, so you don't have to get up and down, we'll combine, Mr. Corbett, can we?
That's all right.
Can we do that prior to voting on number 8? Yeah, we'll come back to number 8. So we'll have you speak about number 8, Citizen Ray, and then you've got a verbal communications card here to speak about another matter. So we'll give you 5 minutes total, and you can mix and match as ever you wish.
Well, you're going to cut me down, huh?
Yes.
1 minute.
Yes.
Well, okay.
Start the clock.
No complaint. On the matter of the environmental, give me a lead-in on your time, please, on the subject I'm talking on.
Environmental review of new library.
okay? Did you give me some more time?
Go.
I mean, the clock is running and you're talking, and that's unfair. I'm going to say it again. Unfair, undemocratic. Shame on you. And I hope the audience catches all this, okay? Yes, I want to try to get the council's attention because this item is about an environmental report for the new library, okay? And that's what I'm speaking to, even though you don't want to even discuss it, okay? And I want to be sure everybody in Los Gatos that's watching tonight knows what I'm talking about, okay? Because I have done my research. I have before me the program, okay, for the RDA funding that goes on every year, okay? And I am so disturbed about the fact that after doing my research, I found out that the program, which is an ordinance and is the law, stipulates that the goals to be achieved, okay? And it's about street reconstruction, alley improvement, downtown streetscape, storm drain reconstruction, sanitary sewer, etc., downtown parking. Not a word about new construction of public buildings until it comes to the last paragraph. It says community fit facilities and buildings. The redevelopment program would provide limited funding for community facilities and buildings. Primary emphasis would be on geologic investigations, structural analysis, rehabilitation, expansion, and seismic retrofit of buildings in the civic center. That's what the library is going to be, in the civic center. So the law stipulates there'll be no funding except what is spelled out for community buildings. No funding for a brand new library. It's unlawful and illegal. You know, and I'm so disturbed about it that I am going to go to the district attorney if you don't do something. Because I know you can't plead ignorance because you also sit as the body that deals with the RDA. You are the redevelopment agency. So how can you plead no knowledge? You can't. So you've got until the next council meeting to do the right thing, the honest thing, and stop stealing the money from the people of Almond Grove and the downtown construction, okay? Downtown commercial. So you've got time to think it over. I'm just nudging you a little bit before we get tough about it, okay? So much for that. I need time now to go down and get my papers, if that's okay with you. They stopped the clock. How do you like that? Real soul around you. Only you could go after it.
Ray, if you're talking, that clock's going to run.
Okay?
Said if you're going to talk, then the clock's going to run.
Oh, you hear that?
Start the clock.
Democracy. Democracy in action. Courtesy of Wasserman.
That's one warning.
Wasserman. Yes. Wanted to bring to your attention the Mulberry School. You're dickering to buy it, okay? I presume buy it for the sports field, I presume, okay? 9 acres over there by Harwood. So, hooray for you. Finally, maybe you're going to do something for the kids of this community, sports-wise. Maybe. Next, public safety matters. There's a crosswalk at the Walgreens Drug connects to the Los Gatos Shopping Center. That sucker has the light burned out, okay, the street lamp. It is, at night, it is pitch black. And you cannot see people walking across there. Believe me, there are no lights. So I've complained about this starting at least a month and a half ago. And I've yet to get see the lamp in there. So now it rises to the occasion with Mr. Larson, okay?
Thank you very much,
I have some
Mr.
others.
Davis.
But, you know, you took away my time and you penalized me, and shame on you. I hope you'll enjoy criticism.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. And Mr. Capurso, I saw your nod as far as checking out. Do you wish to say something?
Staff is aware of the burnt-out light bulb, and we're scheduling it with our other street light replacement program.
Super. Thank you very much. Okay, we now close the public portion on consent item number 8, and I'll look to Town Attorney Korb, Mr. Korb, to comment, please.
Yes, I just want to respond to the point made by the speaker about the redevelopment plan and the library project. The question in interpreting a redevelopment plan is whether the plan provides for any proposed project. Mr. Davis was referring to an appendix to the plan. In the text of the plan, there are many different areas where the plan refers to public facilities, including library uses. It provides for such facilities, such as the Police Operations Building, which was also funded in part by redevelopment funds, and it's my opinion that the library is provided for as a project within the redevelopment area.
Thank you very much. I'll now look to council. No, you know you can't rebut to that. Now I'll look to council for action on number 8.
I'll move to approve item 8.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for the question. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None. Okay. We are now to, I don't have any of the cards, that's it. We're now to number 9, other business. And we have a presentation tonight regarding the temporary closure and transition of the Community Hospital of Los Gatos. And Mr. Larson, you're going to start things off for us?
Correct.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, Greg Larson, Town Manager. In less than a month, we will have the closure and transition of the Community Hospital of Los Gatos, as detailed in the staff report provided to council. The current lessee and lessor of the hospital are changing hands, and El Camino is in escrow to close on the hospital no later than June 1st. Tenant, the current operator, has announced that they will cease operations of the hospital as of April 10th. We have invited for the council 3 speakers tonight. First will be Mr. Bruce Lee, Director of Santa Clara County Emergency Medical Services, who will provide an overview of the impact report, of which the staff cover memo was included in your council packet. Second will be Dr. Paul Beaupre, who is the Chief Medical Officer and Chief Operating Officer of Good Samaritan Hospital, who will talk about their efforts during the closure of Community Hospital Los Gatos to continue meeting the needs of Los Gatos and the broader community. And third will be Mr. Ken Graham, the CEO of El Camino Hospital, who will be making a brief PowerPoint presentation on their activation program for the hospital. Before moving to our speakers, I did want to announce that one of the greatest concerns your staff has had, as we've reported to the council previously, is the need for adequate public notification of the closure of the hospital. And your Parks and Public Works staff has identified that we have 10 sets of signs here in the town of Los Gatos, plus 6 others outside of our town limits that say hospital or emergency room this way. And as of April 10th, we will be covering or changing the signs within the town of Los Gatos so there is no misdirection to residents, visitors, or businesses in town to a hospital that is not operating. And we are in communication with the county, Caltrans, and CHP and City of Campbell regarding the 6 signs located outside of our town limits. In addition, we are developing a public communication program which would consist of direct mail to residents and businesses of Los Gatos announcing the date of the closure, as well as some limited display advertising in local print media. And those are the efforts we're taking above and beyond any regulatory requirements we have to assist the hospital operators in communicating with our residents, businesses, and visitors about the closure of the hospital so we don't have any minimize the unfortunate impacts of that closure. With that, I'd like to turn it over to our guest speakers who have been invited at your request to provide more detail on the closure and what comes when it reopens. Mr. Lee?
Thank you very much. Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of the council. My name is Bruce Lee, and I'm the director of the Santa Clara County EMS Agency, which is a division of the Public Health Department in the Health and Hospital System. Again, thank you for giving me this opportunity to be here to help just to take a few minutes and clarify the process, the legal process that we have to develop an impact evaluation report, and then talk to you a little bit about the coordination that we have underway between Tenet, the current operators of the hospital, and the new operators of the hospital. First of all, just to clarify why we're doing this, this is required in a very small state law or limited state law that requires us under Division 2.5 of the State Health and Safety Code to develop an impact evaluation report for any noticed and proposed downgrade or closure of a hospital. And you have this report, I think, now distributed to you by the clerk, by your clerk. This report is required to assess the primary impacts related to the services of the emergency department as well as the inpatient services. However, the report in itself has no binding effect or teeth, as you may want to say, in regard to the proposed action. It is an informational document only that is required to be given to the State Department of Public Health, and the State Emergency Medical Services Agency requires noticing and public vetting, and then from there it ends its life. Now, part of this process is a timeline. The law requires that the hospital that is proposing or noticing a closure or downgrade of services provide 90 days notice to the Emergency Medical Services Agency, and that's what was done by Tenet. Furthermore, the law requires that the county EMS agency develop the impact evaluation report within 60 days of the notice and submit the report to the state offices that I just mentioned up through the County Board of Supervisors. So again, Tenet did serve notice on January 8th. The law also requires that we hold at least one public hearing. In this case, Supervisor Gage and the Board of Supervisors did elect to hold two public hearings, one here in your council chambers on February 19th, and the second on the date that this was held, the report was reviewed in front of the full board on March 3rd. The closure process for us, the operational process in coordination with Tenet, really begins on April 1st, and the hospital itself closes as a hospital. On April 1st, the closure process begins, and the hospital closes on April 10th. The impact report in itself does go over a few impacts, keeping in mind that this is one of the smaller community hospitals that we have, but very important. It serves, obviously, a very important geographic area, an area that is somewhat isolated in terms of services. And so the impacts that we have outlined in the report, number one, there will be, during the closure period, longer ambulance transport times for some patients in need of acute emergency medical services to the closest, most appropriate hospital. That could be Good Samaritan Hospital, could be Valley Hospital, or another one of the neighboring hospitals. So that's one of the impacts. Also, another impact will be that, as you all know, our healthcare system is very fragile, and we have already in our county an overcrowding situation in most of the emergency departments, and not unlike the emergency departments throughout the state. And this will have an incremental impact on, a negative impact on increasing the overcrowding, particularly at some of the neighboring hospitals. The positive side to this, though, this closure, it's going to be followed by a reopening of the hospital. And I'd also like to say that we have received excellent cooperation and communication from the very beginning from both tenant, the current owners and operators of the hospital, and El Camino District Hospital, who have informed us of their plans, and they have worked very closely with our office, not so much with the closure report, but quite a bit now in terms of the reopening of the hospital. And I'll let them speak to that, but we are ready to put this hospital back on the grid in terms of receiving emergency medical patients, being a participant in the 911 system, and all the other things that go on with an acute care hospital at the time that they are ready to open this facility. So that concludes the overview of my report, and I'd certainly be willing to answer any questions you may have.
Council, any questions, Mr. Lee? No, I have one question for you, if I may. When you had the two, when the county held the two public meetings regarding this transaction, were any issues raised that were unresolved, that are as of yet unresolved? Any concerns by any members?
By my memory, there were most of the speakers during the public session were medical providers, either from neighboring hospitals, Good Samaritan Hospital, El Camino, and Los Gatos Community Hospital. And I don't think anything is at this point unresolved. Now, of course, this is a very serious matter of public and patient safety to close a hospital and then to reopen it. So we're going to keep our eye on things throughout the process, but with the assistance that the city town manager has already mentioned, the plans from El Camino and the plans from tenant, I feel that everything is being done in a reasonable manner, and patient health will be protected.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lee. Council, any other questions? Nope. Thank you very much. Now, Dr. Paul Beaupre, excuse me, I knew that.
Mr. Mayor and the Town Council, thank you for the opportunity to speak to you. I am Dr. Paul Beaupre, and I'm the Chief Medical Officer and Chief Operating Officer at Good Samaritan Hospital. We just wanted to take this opportunity to assure you that during the time of the closure of Community Hospital and during its transition to El Camino Hospital, we have done a number of things to ensure that the community is well served for its health care needs. The very first thing we did when we heard about the actual closure of the facility was to begin to meet with the EMS people and talk to them about when they would actually be diverting their ambulances. And since we expected to get the brunt of the patients, we took immediate steps to move our vascular lab out of an adjacent area near the emergency room, and we have opened 5 additional examining bays within the emergency room now to take the additional patients. We've actually staffed up the emergency department. We have an additional physician on for every rotation during the day and night in the emergency department, and we've added additional staff to take what would be possibly an additional 30 to 60 patients per day from the community hospital over to our facility. We have anticipated that there would be a shift, temporarily at least, in surgical volume from community hospital over to Good Sam. We've extended the hours of operation in the emergency in the operating room, and we have added additional staff to be able to take the additional work there. And finally, the other major area of access to the hospital is through labor and delivery. We have extended to all the surgeons and the obstetricians that were on courtesy staff at our hospital and active staff at community hospital the opportunity to become active staff at our hospital. We have on those obstetricians that tend to use midwives as part of the delivery team. Extended invitations for the midwives to also join our staff. We have approached nurses that work at Los Gatos Community Hospital about doing PRN work to help staff up the additional facilities we need to do the additional deliveries during the time of closure. And all of this has been done successfully. We have continued to meet with EMS and made sure that they were aware of our added abilities during this period of time. And we look forward to serving the community any way we can. I'm open for any questions you might have.
Thank you, Dr. Beaupre. Questions? Mr. Brzezinski.
Thank you, Doctor. Our constituents are very concerned about continuum of care. And I guess the question simply should be, given all of the accommodations that you're making at this point in time, what will be the deficiencies that you see? What will be the deficiencies that still will require some attention by the rest of the medical community outside Good Samaritan's accommodations?
Right. Actually, looking at the current volumes that are going through community hospital right now, barring a natural catastrophe or anything like that,
Certainly.
Good Sam will be able to handle the work in the interim period, and I do not see any kind of fall off in services provided to the community. We would be underbedded in the community if we had a significant natural disaster right now.
I think that's a given, but appreciate that. Thank you.
No other questions? I just want to say I was at Good Sam on Friday for a procedure, and your hospital took very good care of me. Thank you for that. You mentioned PRN work. What is PRN work?
That's instead of having someone come over and join us on a full-time basis, many of the nurses at community hospital right now would like to come over and work as needed. And part of the reason we're offering them that kind of employment is it gives them an opportunity to take a look at us and we at them. If El Camino gets back online in a very timely manner and they want to go back and work over there, then they can do that. If for some reason there's some difficulties getting back open and they'd want to join us full-time, then they could do that at that point.
Thank you, and I thank you for being here tonight. Following up on Councilman Brzezinski's comments, this is the first time that I've really heard, and I know the public is hearing it, we have a reporter here and we have the TV on, that while community hospital is closed, Good Sam is increasing the number of beds. I believe you said 5 more bays in emergency, and bringing on an extra doctor during that time and additional staff to help take on the normal emergency medical needs in our community. And I thank you for that partnership and working together. It's very nice to have you here, the county here, and El Camino here, and showing this working together for the benefit of the community, because that's what this council cares about. Okay, the prices, the negotiations, the leases, competition, that part we're not so concerned about. What we're concerned about is that this community continues to get the high level of medical services that it's accustomed to, and it sounds like we're headed that direction.
Yeah, we can assure you we're doing everything possible to make sure that happens.
Thank you, Doctor. And next we have Mr. Ken Graham, CEO of El Camino.
Actually, I'm not.
Or perhaps.
Actually, I'm not Ken Graham. I'm Dave Reeder. I'm the chairman of the board of El Camino Hospital.
Excuse me, sir. What was your last name, Dave?
Reeder.
Reeder.
Yeah, it's on the top of the list up there.
Right.
I'm just going to give you a little background on the hospital and where we came from and why we're here tonight. And then I'll have Mr. Graham come up and talk to you a little bit more about the details of it. And Dr. Piper will come up and give you even more details of it. I've been on the board of directors at the hospital for 10 years. It's an elected position. Prior to that, I was a former mayor of the city of Los Altos, spent 8 years on the Los Altos City Council, spent before that 8 years on the Planning Commission in Los Altos. And I want to compliment you because this is the most efficiently run city council meeting I have ever seen. It seems like we're always going until 10, 10:30, 11
I think that deserves a round of applause.
We at El Camino call ourselves the Hospital of Silicon Valley. We have a pretty proven record of excellence in health care. We were recently rated by Forbes magazine as one of the top 5% of hospitals in the United States. We've been rated top hospital for cardiac care in the state of California. and I won't bore you with all those details, but a piece of background, back in the late 50s, some physicians and community leaders got together and said, we want our own hospital, because there wasn't anything then between Stanford and San Jose. So the community had an election, decided they wanted to have a hospital district. A few years later, we had another election, and they voted to tax themselves to build the hospital. It was set up as an enterprise district, so the taxpayers would pay the funds to build the hospital, but by and large, the operations of the hospital would be taken care of by patient revenue. So we're not like Valley, where our operations are all taken care of by our patients. Our district, as you'll see on a map here in a minute, consists of Mountain View, Sunnyvale, Los Altos Hills, and a little bit of Palo Alto, and a little bit of Sunnyvale. And we're physicians and administrators and employees and volunteers and even board members who are really committed to doing whatever it takes for patient safety, and that's part of what brought us here tonight. So the what about it is, El Camino Hospital is in the process of, the deals all haven't been closed yet, but in the process of buying the land, buying the buildings, and buying some of the equipment of Community Hospital of Los Gatos. We're not buying the operations, but we will be taking over operations, and you'll get a little bit more detail out in a minute. So you might ask, why is El Camino interested in doing this? We're not going to become a hospital system. We started out as an independent hospital. We're still going to maintain ourselves as an independent hospital, but part of our patients already come from this area, Los Gatos, Saratoga, Montessorino. And we decided a few years ago that our number one goal was going to be patient quality of care and patient satisfaction. We just approved a revised general plan at our board meeting last Wednesday, and that general plan says, or that strategic plan says, we're going to be among the top 5% of hospitals for quality of care and for patient satisfaction on all factors within 3 years. And that takes a lot. There's three things that takes. One is some really experienced staff and executive team that understands quality and how to make that happen. Second thing it means is we need to have enough volume to generate revenue to provide the capital resources that we need to buy the very best in medical technology. And third, we need to have additional volume because in the quality circles, and Dr. Pfeiffer will be able to tell you a lot about this a lot later because I'm sure you'll be seeing a lot more of him in the future, but quality in a large extent with particularly high-level surgeries is very much dependent upon the number of surgeries that you do. So that's sort of the third reason that we want to do it. And of course the other reason is that by generating more patients and more revenue, we can expand our services, both what we provide in Mountain View or what we are planning to provide here in Los Gatos. So I'm missing the slides here. Our vision is for this to benefit both the El Camino Hospital District and Los Gatos and surrounding communities. But in the spirit of full disclosure, I have to tell you that I'm elected by the residents of the El Camino Hospital District. And for me to have voted for this and to say this is good for, this is the right decision to make, I had to be convinced that this was good for the patients in our district. Now, our patients are not only the ones who live in our district, but they're from all over the place, including Los Gatos. We have a certain number of individuals in our district who don't think this is the right thing to do. We are not using taxpayer money for what we're doing in Los Gatos. But I was convinced that this was the right thing to do for our district residents for the very three things I told you just a minute ago. One of them is that we need more volume to generate revenue, to buy better medical technology, and to increase the volume of things like cardiac surgery, brain surgery, high-level cancer surgery. And those are the benefits that the residents of our district will have by having a broader base of potential patients and the physicians that support those patients. So while I'm convinced that this is the right thing for our district, the secondary benefit is to your communities, because what we're going to be able to give to your communities is the same level of health care that we've been able to provide at El Camino Hospital in Mountain View, and the culture of caring that really started with the first CEO of our hospital. And cultures, as you know, are hard to change, but there's been a culture in our hospital since the day it opened about compassionate care for our patients, and we want to be able to share that with you. So I'm going to turn it over to Ken Graham, our CEO, and he will talk a little bit more about our service area and what specifically we're doing.
Thank you, Mr. Reeder. If you can hold there just a minute.
Yes.
Please, Councilmember Spector has a question of you.
Yes.
Hello again.
Hi.
Question. You were talking about we're not going to be part of the district that you described, correct?
You are not currently part of the district. The district that I was speaking of is what's in the sort of lighter color in the middle there. That's
Correct.
Mountain View, Sunnyvale. So we're not saying you're now part of our district. There is always the potential of discussing that in the future, but for right now, the district remains as it is. We're just expanding our primary service area, which always has been larger than our district.
And as Mr. Wasserman pointed out, we up here are concerned about our area here.
Yes.
And so the question would be, you stated that the district taxed itself to build a hospital. Its operations are based on patient revenue. And would the hospital be contemplating a district in this area in the future, going to our residents for taxes to build hospitals or maintain hospitals? What is the thinking in that regard?
I think we would be very open for discussions. I think there could be some long-term mutual benefit for doing that.
Okay, thank you.
What one has to do is convince the taxpayers that there is some value for doing that. And our taxpayers chose that 50 years ago. And I think there's a possibility of your citizens doing the same thing.
But up until you do that, or if you don't even choose to do that, the hospital here will continue to operate on whatever revenue and the payments of the patients.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions, Mr. Reeder? Nope. Thank you very much.
Okay, Mr. Graham.
Thank you, Mr. Graham. Before you start speaking, I just wanted to apologize to Dr. Pfeiffer back there. I didn't see you before when I was speaking about our lunch meeting, and I didn't see you there. Thank you.
I am Ken Graham, CEO at El Camino Hospital. I'm very pleased to meet with you tonight. We hope this is a long and productive journey into the future together. Going back to the service area that Mr. Reeder referred to, there's a number of things that make this a very logical relationship. One is we've been neighbors for a long time. A lot of our employees, physicians, and patients are from Los Gatos and the area and the communities around here, and it's very convenient that we're connected by a freeway. I think we're about 13 miles door to door, and on good times a day, it's only about 15 minutes. But the logic of us working together in this situation is that we are neighbors taking care of neighbors, and that's a tradition we have in Mountain View, and that's a tradition we'll provide and support here in Los Gatos. I want to, excuse me, let me go back for 1 minute. I'd like to point out that we handed out to you tonight a capability brochure that describes a little bit about our organization. I won't bore you with that, but I would refer that to you so that you can learn a little bit about the resources and capabilities that are we're being able to share with you. One of your great concerns has been the continuity and the issues of community service during the potential closure and then the reopening of the hospital. You asked, I believe, in public that there be some cooperation between Good Sam and the current owners of the facility and the current operators of the facility in El Camino to see if we could close that gap. So tonight we're pleased to announce that with the cooperation of Tenant Corporation and HCP, the Real Estate Investment Trust, that we are going to be able to acquire the hospital earlier than the June 1st that was previously announced. So tonight we'll be able to announce that we will acquire the hospital legally on April 11th. This purchase will allow us to move up the activation date for the hospital. As you know, we were going to need a minimum of 90 days to activate the hospital, and if we were going to acquire it in June, it might not be until September that we were going to be able to consider opening. We can now anticipate opening in mid-July. This will move us up 7 to 8 weeks ahead of the current schedule, and so we believe that this will be beneficial to your community and all of our ambitions to provide the best possible quality care. Of course, we will be just getting full access to the hospital on April 11th, and it will take us some time to confirm our early studies and information regarding the hospital, and so we will get back to you with a formal announcement about the opening date in the next month or so. I'd like to talk a little bit about the leadership and the resources that are going to be brought to your community and support this. Again, we're not going to be from way out of town. We're right here. And so our leadership and our experience and the presence of our own employees and physicians who live here will be supporting this hospital. The hospital has tremendous resources. We have people who have made full-time professions of working at these services for decades in El Camino. Our hospital is known for long tenure and high quality and excellent growth. We would extend that to you here. So we will have our best people assigned to support the program here in Mountain View. We have also a great cooperation already extended and actually working between the physicians in Mountain View and the physicians in Los Gatos. We've had meetings between physicians who are now in leadership positions at Los Gatos, and we believe we have excellent cooperation, and Dr. Piper will be up here in just a minute to describe more of that. I'd like to give you just an introduction to Dr. Piper. I think several of you have met him personally, but Dr. Piper is currently the Chief Medical Officer at El Camino and will continue in that role, but will assume the role of President of Los Gatos when it opens. He is a graduate of Johns Hopkins University in 1989 with a Bachelor of Science. He is a physician from the Medical College of Pennsylvania in 1993, and he did his residency and was chief resident at Temple University in Philadelphia, where he concluded his training in 1997. Since then, he was assistant professor of medicine at the University of Pennsylvania and between 1998 and 2007, where he was very involved in informatics and quality improvement. And he joined El Camino in September of 2007 as our leader of our APEX quality improvement and our automation programs. We have great confidence in Dr. Piper administratively, and also he is a proven record as being a great physician leader. It's my privilege to introduce him to you now.
Thank you, Mr. Graham. Just 1 minute. Council, any questions of Mr. Graham? Mr. Brzezinski.
It's not really a question, Mr. Graham. Just it's very encouraging tonight to hear the response of El Camino with Tenet and the interface with Good Samaritan as well, in response to the voiced concern of so many members of our community when the announcement was made that El Camino was going to be the replacement body for Los Gatos community as we had this hiatus of a number of months. And it speaks well to the relationship that has already developed. It speaks well to the interest on the part of the agencies to provide that service that the community has so greatly appreciated and cherished over the course of the years with Los Gatos community. And it makes me, and I'm sure the rest of the council, feel that the ongoing relationship will continue to be a very viable and cooperative relationship because of the responses we've seen. The April 11 response, the mid-July reopening, those look very attractive at this point in time. So we want to commend you for the work that you and the other hospital bodies have done to bring us to this point.
Great. Well, thank you. It has been an effort, but I'm sure we're all very pleased to be able to serve you in this way.
Super. Thank you. Any other questions? Thank you.
Dr. Piper.
Okay, so
Dr. Piper, if you'll just introduce yourself.
Sure.
Thank you.
Sure. My name's Eric Piper. I am the Chief Medical Officer at El Camino Hospital in Mountain View, and I'm going to be the President of the Community Hospital of Los Gatos when it reopens.
Thank you.
So I have the privilege of describing to you tonight what types of services we're going to offer at the Community Hospital of Los Gatos when it reopens in July. I've got a number of questions from physicians, from nurses, from people in the community and others about whether we would change the hospital upon its reopening. In fact, there's been a number of sort of rumors and things that have gone around that El Camino might make it into a focused hospital, something like a rehabilitation hospital or something like that. So this is sort of an important thing for us to describe. We've described it in the press a number of times, but I just want to make it very clear tonight. We will open Community Hospital of Los Gatos as an acute care facility, similar in many respects to the facility that it is today. It's a hospital that really enjoys a well-deserved and excellent reputation for giving a warm, caring place. It's got that sort of real community hospital feel, and we really want to retain a lot of that feel to the hospital as we reopen it. One of the reasons that we think that this is a very nice fit for us at El Camino is that we think of ourselves in Mountain View, despite the fact that it's a larger facility, we think of ourselves as having that really warm, caring, kind of compassionate type care that Community Hospital of Los Gatos is known for. So it will open as an acute care facility. It will have an emergency department. As the other physician from Good Samaritan mentioned, it does about 13,000 visits a year, and we would probably do that, and we think probably even more than that over time. It will have medical and surgical beds. It will have an intensive care unit similar to what it has now. We will run general surgery programs and the other standard programs that a community hospital is known for. Another decision that we've made recently, and actually just in the past several weeks, is that we will offer obstetrical care and neonatal intensive care at the hospital. Those of you who have been involved in hospitals in the past may know that those are difficult programs to run if they're small. And this has been a relatively small program in comparison with Good Samaritan's larger program. But we did make a decision. It was a decision that we checked with physicians in your community. We spoke to a number of mother groups, and we really sort of tried to reach out to the community and ask them about what they liked about the obstetric service and what their feelings about the hospital were in terms of our running that service in the future. And there was really a strong response from the community about the type of obstetric care and some fantastic experiences that members of our community, the Los Gatos community, have had at that hospital. So we will open obstetrics when we reopen the hospital. We're also going to invest in a program that is something that the council should probably be aware of. This community has extremely strong orthopedic surgeons who specialize in the spine. So there are a number of physicians who make their home currently at Los Gatos that are nationally recognized for their work in instrumented spine cases, which means correcting scoliosis and correcting other structural problems with the spine. So we are going to plan on continuing that relationship, and we'd like to grow it, actually, over time. We've had a number of meetings with these doctors. Mr. Graham and myself have met with these physicians a number of times, and we really think we can grow that program, and it will really serve as kind of a jewel in the crown for a nice community hospital. In addition, we're looking at urology and urologic services. There is a focused program that currently exists at the Community Hospital of Los Gatos. It's an excellent program. As a former kidney stone patient myself, I can tell you they are no fun. And this hospital has a real strength in taking care of patients with kidney stones. So that's another program that we're looking at. We think we'll probably invest in that program as well and grow it, but that's something that we're really working through right now. A few things about the campus by the numbers. I've been asked a number of times about why 90 days. Why can't you get the hospital open more quickly than that? And so I want to take maybe 2 minutes to describe what it takes as a hospital administrator to open a hospital like this. The hospital, granted, is 143 beds, and the hospital we have in Mountain View it's actually 390, and now it's going to change in the next year. But the number of beds doesn't really give you a feel for the complexity. It's just as difficult to open a 143-bed hospital as it is to open a 300 or a 400 or even a 500-bed hospital. And that is because you need the same computer software. Hospitals are extremely software-intensive businesses. You have to do all of the standard stuff that a business has, meaning you have to pay people, you have to have paychecks, you have to have accounts payable and receivable, you got to cut bills, you got to get paid for those bills, and all of the sort of the business and financial operations of the hospital have to happen. And in addition to that, you have to have clinical systems to run your pharmacy, to run all of your nursing documentation and all of the other sort of complicated clinical things, and then you have different types of clinical services. So a pediatrician has completely different software and software needs than an orthopedic surgeon. In Mountain View, we run upwards of 200 software applications, and when the current operator leaves the facility, they will leave with all of their software. So we are working now to take all of the software applications that we have in Mountain View and extend them down to Los Gatos. And I would say actually that's or extend them to incorporate the scope of services that we'll offer at Los Gatos. So I would say that the biggest effort that we have going on right now in terms of this 90-day reopening period relates to that. It relates to extending the software. But in addition to that, you need to hire over 300 employees and staff, probably more than that. You need to train all of those employees on the new software, and then you need to have the policy and procedure related to the software, related to those new business operations and those clinical operations incorporated into the work that they do on a day-by-day basis. So it is a complex procedure that we're going through. We've set 90 days for ourselves as an aggressive target. We think we can hit it. I'd say we've got full attention of everybody in Mountain View, and we're quickly hiring staff from Los Gatos, reaching out to nurses and other people that worked at the hospital and people in this community and physicians in this community so that we can put together sort of Los Gatos specific teams to then take the work that we've already been doing since we contemplated this transaction and extending that work and really sort of kicking up the speed at which we do that work. So that's all going very well. The Human Resources Department at El Camino has been working overtime to get these positions posted. As you can imagine, we had to have some more clear idea for them about the clinical services that we would offer. Then we needed to do staffing plans. Then we needed to do some negotiating with labor unions and other things, and then we could get the positions posted. So our Vice President of Human Resources has a list of currently 41 positions. Those positions are either posted now or will be posted in the next week or two so that we can hire people even in advance of the reopening of the hospital. The idea would be that we would hire them for a later start date. That way, in tough economic times, members of the community who worked at the hospital will have jobs, and they know they'll have jobs moving forward. And so we're working on all of those things right now. We have a good number of jobs posted on the website even tonight, and we're getting applications from current Los Gatos employees and members of the community for those jobs. So we're really pleased at the way that's going. I'm not going to focus on this because I think Mr. Lee and Mr. Graham and others focused on this. I can answer any questions about continuity of care and acute care services and other things if those are necessary. I would point out that in addition to Good Samaritan doing an excellent job of really responding to the community need, we've also done the same thing up in Mountain View, and the hospital in Mountain View is only 13 miles away, so it's not an inconceivable trip for a surgeon to make to take a patient up to Mountain View to operate on their patient. In fact, we've had a number of surgeons, particularly in some of these highly specialized areas, who we've had conversations with about moving their cases up to Mountain View for the period of time while the hospital is closed. So we're doing everything we can. We've extended hours in our OR suites. We've extended hours into the weekends as well in order to try and accommodate need in addition to the work that Good Sam and others are doing here. And so lastly, I just want to make a few announcements. We have been working quite a lot, as I pointed out, with healthcare professionals here. We've got a number of positions that are posted already, and we're posting more every day. And we are going to participate in a job fair at the hospital. We've actually been invited by the current operators of the hospital to come to a job fair on March 24th. So that we will be doing on the grounds of the hospital. I have opened an office at 825 Pollard. It's right across the street from the emergency department at the hospital, and I'm keeping regular hours there. I meet with, in fact, I'll be there tomorrow afternoon. I'm meeting with members of the community, with nurses and doctors and others who want ask questions about when the hospital is going to reopen, some of the service questions that I answered tonight, and a number of other things. So that's going very well. We also have a meeting with the League of Women Voters. That's up in Los Altos on March 30th at 7 p.m. And we are planning another community forum in April, a meeting for Los Gatos. We rented the Los Gatos Lodge just after the time that we took possession of the facility, or we made the announcements that we were entering a purchase and sale agreement on the facility. And we met, I think, almost every person who currently works at the hospital, just to give them a feeling for what we were doing and how quickly we were going to do this work and how quickly we were going to respond to their needs and get jobs posted in these tough economic times. It went very well, we thought. We did well with the employees, and we think another forum is going to be helpful. So we're going to do that in April. We plan to work with the City and Town Council during the upcoming period in closure. There is a website which is called www.losgatoselcamino.org, which has announcements about what we're doing. The employees from the hospital know the site very well, and they're checking it on a regular basis. I've put a number of video clips up there just talking about our plans and how things are going. So if there's any questions, or if members of the community are wondering what we're doing, we're updating that website on a weekly basis. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Pfeiffer. Look to my fellow council members for any questions. Nope, I don't either. Thank you very much. We appreciate it. And Yes, Mr.
Mayor,
Larson.
members of the council, obviously the announcement today of the successful acceleration of the closure date to April 11th is tremendous news that staff was not aware of when we wrote the report last week, and that's a great testament to the new operators of the hospital to accelerate that closure.
And to accelerate the reopening. We had the other half of that. Okay, so we've heard our presentation now. I'll look to the public for any comments that they wish to make regarding this item. Yes, sir.
Hi, my name is Wes Alice, and I'm the vice chair of the board at El Camino Hospital. I have just a couple of comments. I went to your website today, and at the footer, in large letters, there were several words: service, stewardship, and future focus. And I want to say that these are concepts with which El Camino is very familiar. This can provide a great foundation, a great basis as we start our work together. You've met Dave Reeder, chair of the board, Dr. Pfeiffer, president of the hospital at Los Gatos, and Ken Graham, the CEO. And I want to say that these are people of extreme intellect, integrity, and commitment. And they are committed to service, stewardship, and future focus, as is everybody at El Camino Hospital. I know that the citizens of Los Gatos and the surrounding communities are very proud of the Hospital of Los Gatos. And what I want to say is that what we want to do is nurture that pride, and 5, 10, 30 years from now, have them have the same kind of pride that they have in the hospital currently. I would also like to say a word of thank you to Good Samaritan Hospital. It is in some ways competitive in healthcare, but also we have the same purpose in mind, and that is to serve our community. And we just attended a conference where a term was used. It's not the first time I heard it, but it was used a lot there. Instead of competition, it was referred to as co-optition. And I hope that we will be able to work with Good Samaritan and other healthcare providers locally to provide the citizens here with the best healthcare and the most satisfying experience that they can have. Thank you.
Thank you. If you'll hold just a minute. Councilwoman Spector.
I don't exactly have a question, but I just wanted to use you as my entree to say that I met Mr. Reeder and Mr. Graham about a year ago when we had received the tenant notice, and they were very impressive. And I just want you to know that everything I've heard tonight from you and from them has just, every time you talk, it gets better. And so I want to thank all of you, and I too want to thank Good Sam for its cooperation.
Thank you. Thank you all very much. Council, any further discussion? There's no action required on this. It was really just a presentation. And is there any direction that council wishes to give staff in any way? Mr. Larson.
I did have a discussion with our new Director of Community Development, Wendy Bruni, and she is available to work with the El Camino Hospital representatives on any tenant improvements or other building permit issues that you have during the next few months to get that early opening date. So
that would be great. And if your workers would please shop in Los Gatos on their lunch break, that would help as well. Thank you. Any other comments? None. Vice Mayor McNutt.
Thank you. I just, I was sitting here thinking about so often when we have change, the idea of change introduced in a community, there's great fear and trembling. And, the old adage about crisis is also opportunity. I can already see that in the future we're going to look back at this. We were so afraid of what was going to happen that I think it's really going to turn into a fabulous opportunity for this community. I also have had an opportunity to meet with several staff members at the hospital at El Camino, and the more I learn about the programs, the more impressed I am, and I just am very eager to see you established here. And I also think it's an opportunity that we have established a closer rapport with Good Sam, which is in San Jose, but still certainly a hospital that serves Los Gatos residents, including the birth of my daughter. So I'm sure there's a plaque there somewhere, right? But yeah, for that. So I think we've lucked out at this.
I think it's a lot of people caring about a community, and I think it's absolutely wonderful. And the big news that I'm happy to share is the estimated reopening mid-July. And we look forward to the invitation on the ribbon cutting. Thank you very much. Council, any other comments? No, we're good. This meeting's adjourned.